which is the entity which supports and promotes National Dalit Watch. So in that sense, I have this honor and the tough job to also share this position with you. So we just have one round of introductions and then
Namaste. This is Dr. Smita Prasad, representing the organization called SRACO, Society for Rural Awakening Community Organization. We are closely working with the government. We are as a technical support organization. We are working with the AP government in 9 different areas.
Good morning, friends. My name is Ravi Kumar. I am representing National Dalit Watch.
Good morning, all of you. I am Srinivas from SRACO organization, Hyderabad.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Amita Bhargava from Society for Promotion of Wasteland. Hello, everyone. I'm Lee from NDW. Yes. She has to do presentation.
but for initial photograph you have to be. Sir.
Yeah, I'm Lee from National Dalit Watch of National Campaign on Dalit Human Rights.
Good morning all, I'm Hannah. I'm from National Campaign on Dalit Human Rights, looking into international advocacy. Thank you.
Myself Rajesh, and I am also from National Dalit Watch.
Namaskar. I am Peter Alexander from Bijapur, representing the District NGO Federation and the past member for Environmental Clearances, Government of Karnataka.
Good morning. I am Mohammad Irshad. I am from Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Mumbai.
My name is Nagaraj. I am with the collective called India Climate Justice, some of whose members are also present in this.
I am Hardeep. I work with the Society for Promotion of Wasteland.
Sorry, we are not able to hear.
I am Hardeep. I work with SPWD, Society for Promotion of Wasteland.
Hi, good morning. I'm Vanita. I work with Oxfam India based at New Delhi office.
Good morning all. Myself Tarapat Pradhan from Dalit Arthik Adhikar.
Good morning everybody. I am Dr. Gayatri Meher. I am working with Indo Global Social Service Society, New Delhi.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Trisha from Focus on the Global South and also part of the India Climate Justice Collective.
हेलो नमस्कार, मेरा नाम महेश पांडे है। मैं पर्यावरण मित्र संस्था से हूँ, गुजरात अहमदाबाद से।
Good morning, I am Ravindranath, working in Assam on the daily basis.
Good morning. My name is Ajay Kumar Jha. I work with an organization called PAIRI. It's public advocacy initiatives for rights and values in India. We work on building capacity of grassroots organization and community-based organizations on issues of governance and human rights. And we are also part of an Indian coalition called Beyond Copenhagen, which works primarily on environmental justice and equity.
Good morning. I'm Shoma Datta. I am convener of People's Science campaign called Bharat Jan Vigyan Janata, but also convener of some groups of energy and climate justice from Beyond Copenhagen, and also member of and one of the founder members of India Climate Justice.
विजय प्रताप नाम है, 65 से दिल्ली में रहता हूँ. I am confused about my individual political identity since WSF process in India 2001. So I work for the process rather than some organization.
I am Viren Lobo from Society for Promotion of Wasteland Development.
Thank you, friends. Really, for me and for many of us, this is a privilege to be part of this consultation. Also, probably this is the first time for us, and I mean us is as Dalit Rights Campaign, to actively engage with leaders and representatives of those who are working on sustainable development, climate justice, and related issues. So welcome to this consultation on impact of climate change on life and livelihood of Dalits. I don't want to take much time, except for me individually, this has been a journey which I've been wanting to take for several decades, or at least, I've been in this work for over 3 decades. But since my involvement in the first super cyclone, what did they call it? The Andhra cyclone of
Super cyclone.
70s. Yeah, super cyclone, where the tidal wave had come in 78.
78 November.
Yeah, 78 November. As a fresh student, somehow, though theoretically you read about these aspects of changes in the climate and its impact, I have personally seen the effect of more marginalized communities and the way that we have been affected during those instances. Then it got pulled into rights issues and all that, but since tsunami, where we were directly encountered with experiences of exclusion at every point, from being counted, from the aspects of relief, immediate relief, from in certain instances diversion of relief materials to other places because they presume that Dalits they just live on fresh air and they don't need any of these. To several aspects of violence forced us to monitor the aspect of mostly disaster and kind of management of relief. Then we looked into disaster risk reduction. That was the time that we felt that we need to also look at the aspects of both biodiversity on the one hand and climate change on the other. And then this is we felt that it is necessary for us to learn more about this, because somewhere Dalits and other marginalized groups have been at the receiving end on 2 areas. One, as people who are vulnerable. Then the people who are vulnerable, who are worst hit, and also who reach the relief last. So that's one aspect which we need to do. And the other, probably most active and virulent community which supports and protects environment, but they are not counted. In the local communities, there is no mention of these communities, Dalits. So both sides, you get hit because of the wastage people like us and the more elite do because of the severe damage to the community on the climate on the one hand. And 2, we don't get counted as people who protect and promote diversity and sustainable way. Sustainable not necessarily because I think we clearly, I don't know, I'm sure the generations previous to us would have really believed in these practices, not just because of the yearning to protect the environment as such, but because it's the most sustainable thing to do, the most economical thing to do, the way they have used the resources, the way they have engaged in looking at agriculture or the aspects of livelihood. I think they believed in a more sustainable way of systems. It's then the entire shift to whatever your revolution, green revolutions or whatever white revolutions that have come, which have gone into the least effort and the maximum profit kind of globalization and economic policies that have gotten into. I think that had started such huge repletion of several aspects which have till now sustained the wider economy, a wider global environment. So in that sense, I think they have played a very, very important role in in protection and sustaining the biodiversity, but somehow that has not sufficiently been documented. And very strangely, those who are at the forefront of the climate aspects are the farmers and the middle and the elite farmers. The attached labor, the people, farmers, as you know, don't really get into farming work. It's actually the Dalit work, the attached labor, the bonded labor, the sharecroppers. They are the ones who are today cultivating, not the dominant farmers in this country. The dominant farmers are managers. The people who are actively today cultivating are the small farmers, marginal farmers, who are basically, in most languages, they are called coolies. They are not raitu. Raitu, in the normal word of the one, are managers of these farms. But somehow, it's the medium and large farmers today are talking about climate change and biodiversity. And the people who have continuously protected and promoted environment are totally left out. And they're not even regarded in this whole negotiations. When you see the definition of local communities, do not include by identity those communities who have sustained the environment for you and me and many of the farmers to enjoy. So somewhere we felt that because of this, we need to begin to explore the area and put back the contribution of Dalits, Adivasis, who have sustained, protected and promoted the sustainability of the broader environment. And that's how we got into this aspect, and we're very happy that people like us have come together to explore this aspect and then take this up. So I will not take any more time, and we are very happy that we have a very creative engagement and collaboration with SPWD in taking this study up, and thank you for making this possible, and thank Amita for making this study possible. So over to Lee in terms of what is the next step. Do we release the report or Amita makes it?
Amita makes just an overview and then we release it, and then all the release.
But why don't we release so that we have a copy while...
And then you all can comment on it, right?
Yeah, better, no? So we request all of us, but primarily those who have been chosen here for some reason. To release,
अमीता जी, आपने जो लिखा है आप तो खड़ा हो जाएंगे।
Yeah.
बड़े अच्छे से पैक किया, डर लग रहा है।
This is also anti-climate change.
Yes. इसको थैले में पैक करना चाहिए अगली बार से।
Thank you, and really congratulate you for it. Yeah, I think you need to hold it up just for the pictures. One more, please, because Amita was not there. Thank you. So may I request now Amita for an overview of this time.
Good morning, everybody. I work with the Society for Promotion of Wastelands Development. As an NGO, we have been working in the area of natural resources degradation, how to arrest and reverse it, and also in the area of life support systems, how to improve the life support system of communities. And because we've been working extensively on land rights and forest rights, so we have taken up the tribal question for a long period of time. But this is our first sort of a concerted effort in the area of Dalit, on the Dalit question, and we're really thankful to NCDHR for providing us this sort of an opportunity. And because the study deals with climate change, so very briefly about climate change, it is here to stay, it is irreversible, and there are mitigation efforts, but and people have also have been sort of adapting to climate change in a sense, and over the ages also climate variability has been there, and people have been adapting to situations of droughts and floods and all. But it is expected that the Earth's temperature is going to rise, and there are several things which are going to happen. Sea level will rise, temperatures will rise, glaciers will melt, but more importantly, in the context of this study, disasters will increase, and the severity and frequency will increase. And in this particular study, we have tried to look at how this is going to impact Dalits. Now, we start with the point that rural livelihoods, like several sectors will be affected, but rural livelihood sector will be greatly affected by climate change. And our premise is that Dalit stakes in the environment are pretty high. And there are some people who have commented about the study that anyway Dalits, they own very little land, and they're getting increasingly alienated from land. So will it impact them to that extent? So our point is that it is not only about ownership of land, it is also about a lot of Dalits, they are into agriculture on a sharing basis, or they take lands on a lease basis, or they are into agriculture labor. So in that sense, their stakes in agriculture are pretty high. And not only that, there are a lot of Dalit communities who are into, who are pastoralist communities, who are into common land, who depend on common lands. There are a lot of Dalit communities who are into bamboo and other things. They are depending on forest resources also. So in a sense, their dependence on forest, land, and agricultural land and common land is pretty high. And any sort of a phenomena which is going to impact land use as such is going to impact Dalits. Now, we're also saying that Dalits have fewer resources, and we've tried to corroborate it through some secondary data that they have fewer resources and they have fewer options to combat the kind of damages which will take place in the context of climate change-induced disaster. We're also saying that internalization of discrimination and exclusion is there, and because of which and they're more vulnerable in this particular context. Now, in the study, the objective was we basically tried to see how during the event of a disaster, are there hierarchies of caste which get imposed in that kind of situation. And we have tried to look at, like the state has also put a lot of things in place. There are institutional mechanisms in place to deal with disasters, to also deal with climate change adaptation. So we have tried to also look in the study into these kind of mechanisms and to see, and our sort of inference was that they are caste blind. There may be a reference here or there, but more or less you can say they are caste blind. And they do not recognize caste-induced vulnerabilities. Other thing is, like as far as the study goes, it's mostly based on this review. There's a little bit of field work we have done in Assam, in RBC's field area, in Dhemaji district, and we happened to be there during the floods this year. And in that particular context, we looked at how this big river, how it changes course, how its small tributaries change course, and also at the point that not only floods, but erosion also is a bigger problem. It's in fact the invisible sort of problem which is there. And apart from that, we went to Bijapur in Karnataka, which is a drought-prone district, and we also looked at a particular situation where there are small streams which are changing their course. Then there's a big infrastructure development project. This is the Almaty Dam, whose height is being raised. So we also saw those things like, in the submergence area, there is a preponderance of Dalits who are getting affected. And through experience, we know, though we could not really get data, the government was not willing to, the education department was not willing to share data because we wanted a disaggregated kind of data for the command area and the submergence area. The people who are getting affected, we wanted that kind of data to show how Dalits are getting affected really. We didn't get that, but from experience we know that it is the economically powerful and the upper caste people are more there in the upper reaches of the command area of Almaty, and people in the submergence area or either fully or partially submerged area, they happen to be people from the Dalit community to a large extent. Now, these were the two locations we sort of visited and tried to develop some sort of impressions, you can say. Then one thing we saw was that climate change affects people from various sections, and there is a caste-specific sort of an impact. And we were also able to, though not in Karnataka, we were not able to see the impact of floods directly, but there was a flood in 2009 in Bijapur, in some locations in Bijapur. So we were able to see how the flood relief work stands today, and how people, particularly from the Dalit community, how they stand to be deprived of their economic, social, and political rights. And we also, one point we saw is that the Dalits do not have, the kind of connect to public spaces, to informal and formal social networks, because of which they are again more vulnerable. We also saw in Assam that unlike some of the tribes who were historically who have been living in the riverine areas, like the Mishing tribes and all, perhaps the Dalits were brought in later when more and more land was to be cultivated. So perhaps because of that, they do not exactly have the kind of coping mechanisms which the Mishing tribe has. So and therefore they are more vulnerable. And they also have limited access to other kind of resources, credit, etc. And during disasters, wage employment decreases, because of which they get impacted. A lot of people also migrated, especially in Assam. We saw that a lot of people migrate to Karnataka. They go for tea and coffee plantation labor work, and the women are left behind, and some basic sort of agriculture is done in one season and all. But the women are also more vulnerable to other kinds of exploitation in this sort of a situation. Now, we look, I'm not covering it here really, but we have looked at the institutional setup related to disaster management in India, also related to climate change adaptation in India, and that they don't look at caste-specific issues really. And broadly, I'm just going to the study recommendations. The first thing is there is a need to take up social protection initiatives to transfer income to the Dalits and other marginalized sections. Then we're also saying that there's a need for, on a priority basis, taking up agriculture development programs in those areas which have large populations of Dalits. Then we are saying there's a need to link up with other so-called flagship programs of the Government of India like NREG, etc. to link any kind of DRR or CCA kind of whatever policies and programs are there, to link that up. Then we're also saying that there's a need for having, trying out what is called community-based disaster risk management, and perhaps to begin with on a pilot basis. And there's a need to also involve Dalit right groups in that sort of a program, and also in relief sort of works and all. And then we're also saying that there's a need for better representation of Dalits in all kind of bodies and authorities which are there related to disaster management in particular. These are broad recommendations we have. They are very generic, in fact, but that is what we did in the study. That's about it. Thanks.
Thank you, Amita. I think that's well documented, and I think these streams of thought probably, though it is there in the folklore or on the conversations, this could be one of the first times where through a process and through evidence, I think you're able to bring this. Thank you very much for the study. May I request short comments from Veeran, Vijay, Sunita and Soumya. So we start in the same order. Veeran.
Thanks, Paul. When Paul asked us about doing this study, basically, the kind of interest that we had. So what Amita mentioned, it's already been, she's already mentioned about it. But I just add that earlier we had also tried to understand the sort of impact of, the relevance of forest on the forest rights and things which were there. So the relevance of that for the Dalits, but we have not done a very systematic study on this. So I think this particular study has helped us to try and get a handle on a particular section of the disadvantaged community which Paul was mentioning. It may not be visible right in the front, but as wage labor or bonded labor, they are very much involved in the entire process of agriculture production. And I think precisely for the point which he mentioned, which was that these are communities who are promoting diversity, but they are not being recognized in that fashion because the current idiom is being put in a different fashion. So the kind of studies which we have done on trying to understand the relevance of the biodiversity for the life support systems and the relevance of the natural resources for the life support systems, and in this how the Dalits are being affected by the various impacts, various things which are impacting the environment. So this provides us a handle, and as Amita said, it is just providing pointers as to the type of problems which are there in the data which one needs to gather in order to properly understand it, the kind of forums which are required also, and the type of inclusion which is required. Now, I think one of the things which is there in the study is also the preventive mechanism. So when one can think in advance, when we are talking of disasters, we are talking about the impact of climate change and the impact of peak events, or those kind of events. So in this connection, what could be the, so we can think in advance, and we look at preventive measures in terms of the policies and things which are being put in place which are going to impact them in future. So one side would be to see the impacts on them based on the current development and current things which are there, and the others to think in advance and to prevent certain things from happening which would impact them, because those things are not entered into the calculations while deciding projects, etc. So I'll leave it here. Samita will be talking more later.
Thank you, Viren. Vijay.
Thank you, Paul. I think what we know from common sense requires to be documented, as the planning is with a upper caste elitist mindset, and they always require even the common sense occurrences to be systematically studied and presented in a formal format. So for that reason, this is a very important, first of its kind study. And Dr. Malti and others, Malti who teaches in social work, she has also been studying the recent Uttarakhand disaster for some other network institutions. So I think first step we should take is what are other mappings taking place in the society, and have a bigger compilation. A minor suggestion on the nature of compilation: if we have on recycled paper, which is a bit costlier, and not glazed paper, even if it is recycled, paper should be cheaper, because for climate crisis we should be spending less and less on these things. So that's one minor suggestion. The other, while giving your welcoming address, your presentation was futuristic, and both Amita's. And that part of the study we must urgently take up. What I mean is that because our mindset is, before I make the central point I want to make, what kind of study, I want to just reiterate the social context in which we operate. Gandhiji and Baba Sahib had a big non-violent, most emotional confrontation, as a result of which Gandhi's fast and Baba Sahib's demand for separate electorate, the result was reservation for Dalits. Now that reservation has resulted in a minuscule middle class among Dalits. But the two father of the nation, one in the constitution sense and one in other senses, both of them didn't want the context which is happening today. Baba Sahib was for developing a citizen identity for all the citizens of this country. That's why he was against reservation. But he realized that you need a separate identity, so he was emphasizing the separate electorate. But that did not happen because of reservation. The upper caste, almost except the progressive political workers themselves, they were all against, these reservations. And there is so much pervasive anti-Dalit feeling in the society, and Dalits became complacent in not asserting their separate identity. It is only the late Mayavati phenomenon which resulted in that. And Gandhi's view was the last person first should give the priority, and that cultural politics was also totally absent. In Nehru's model of development, it was the first person first. The top crust has to control the planning. Now, since 91, you have clear corporate control. So this context is that we neither have the politics as envisioned by Gandhi nor by Ambedkar. And how can it be sustainable? Because if it is meant to serve the interests only of the upper 5% or 3% of the people, then it cannot be sustainable at all. And when I said you were futuristic in your presentation, you mentioned that how it is small peasants who are not even called peasants, who do agriculture, and they are called coolies in most of our languages. They are doing the sustainable livelihoods and sustainable practices. Similarly, our Adivasis, the forest science they believe in. Amita mentioned about the bamboos, and there are international organizations promoting bamboo use and how it is as strong as cement in many contexts, and how a Medha-Lekha experiment also proves that with the right kind of governance structure, each landless family can have 6,000-7,000 rupees per month income, where they have used the commons. But you give 6,000-7,000 to Dalit, which means you are not giving that so far. So unless you couple it with free public education, free health, then 6,000-7,000 will take them to the below poverty line in the near futuristic thing. So any study of the knowledge system of Dalits or Adivasis or combined, how are they practicing the sustainability model, and how that has to be valued by the rest of the society, and all their basic needs need to be taken care, because they are not just not consuming carbon, not emitting carbon, not consuming energy and not emitting carbon. They have to be taken care by rest of the society, and this discourse should come into being. So like Sarvhara leads the revolution, similarly the climate crisis can be responded only by the Dalits and Adivasis coupled with a scientific backing by our types, and that has to, it's a fairly urgent task, and some kind of knowledge democracy conferences at each district level where the technological and knowledge resources of Dalits which are based on sustainability perspective should be documented, and then they should be valued by a direct reference and analysis of political economy of that region and district level planning controlled by Dalits and other marginal groups is the only way for a sustainable politics at a national or a global level. So we have to break new grounds on the ground under the leadership of the marginals only. Thank you.
Thank you, Vijay. Actually, what you have unearthed or initiated is a very, very wide discussion on reservation and others, which my suggestion to other friends here, both who have been working on Dalit rights and those who are, in other words, let us leave that aside for a while, because otherwise we will not have time to focus on this. While I agree with some of the things, it really gets into a long and detailed discussion, which is very critical, important, but it will definitely a little shift the attention away from the issue at hand. So while I thank you for connecting with that very wide aspect, but let's really focus on the both contribution, effect, and how can we take this issue of excluded communities and the climate change and what are the strategies I think we need to take up. Thank you, Vijay. Sunita, Dr. Sunita Prasad.
First of all, let me congratulate NCDHR, especially Amita, for working such a great work within the 3 months. So conducting a national-wide study and visiting 2 states, getting the data and consultation, working on it within 3 months, getting this type of a beautiful and technically qualitative report. It's really it involves a lot of hard work in it. So we are all heartfully appreciating your efforts, Amita. Congratulations. So coming to this.
This from SPWD, not Amita is from.
So I would like to give one more suggestion in this. Actually, this is very good. So in link to this, so climate change, whenever we talk about, our minds goes to the rural this thing. So when we link with the Dalit community, so poor people lives in the villages, but poorest of the poor lives in the slums. So industrialization and globalization making Dalits more poorest of the poor situations. So if you put our minds in this urban climate change impacts, like GHG gases and carbon footprints, it comes more quantitative and in figures wise, if you see in worldwide reports, the urbanization and industrialization is making more part of in that. So I request NCDHR and SPWD or some other partners, if you could take up a study on the impact of the climate change in the urban sector, how it impacting the livelihoods of Dalits, it will be more, so it's a value addition to this study. So it's my recommendation. Thank you, and once again, congratulations.
Thank you, Dr. Sunita. You maintained the time and very important suggestion, I think. Thank you. May I request now, Arnab is not, okay, Soumya ji.
First, my congratulations to both the National Campaign for Dalit Human Rights and SPWD for bringing out a report. I had very little time to go through this because I got this late last night and was busy in many other things, but still, while I will compliment them, I would like to point out some of the areas that probably needs a little bit of focus and some of the areas which probably will be better off if, as a follow-up work, these are taken up. Of course, given the time and all, I understand there is little chance to go into details. One very clear thing is that 2 case studies that have been undertaken are, when you talk about climate change impacts, there is always this counterpoint posed by many, that many of the things like you yourself has said, which is a little from a little misunderstanding that changes in the climatic system have been happening. In fact, the major differentiation between what is happening over a long period of time and what we are seeing now are two things. One is unpredictability, because many of the things which were happening were predictable over a period of time. And the second thing is the scale of time. So these two have made major differences in how marginalized communities are able or not able to respond to this. Because over a long period of time, localized communities, even marginal communities, as you said, has adopted some kind of adaptation measures, which are not possible now. The second thing that often are pointed out, which I think is a little bit problematic here, is that the two examples that you have taken are valid even without the climate change, larger climate change phenomena. Because floods in Assam and the case in Karnataka that you have taken, even assuming that climate change do not exist, those kind of happenings are there. I would request that we go into as a next step probably, because as I understand that with a very little time and resources probably this is a good initial one. Because the kind of impacts that marginalized communities are having are really not known in many places. I tried two different areas, one in Himachal, that was I think 2010, and incidentally that was with the, that organization, that Dalit Mountain Rights, based in Palampur. A study on two districts of Kangra and Mandi of what are the pardon? Bishop Premi and this other group, Bimla, Bishop Premi and Professor. There's one professor who heads that. And another in Madhya Pradesh in Madhya Pradesh in Chhindwara district. And in both these we understood that the mainstream like this kind of things that are brought out, that dams and power plants are really tip of the iceberg. What is happening inside, what is happening in every village and every forest range areas are really not known. So one thing that we need to do is really undertake, and here I can see Naga is sitting here. Naga led a study long back, I think 2008 or 2008 probably. A study on actual climate impacts on small farmers and agricultural workers in 4 Gujarat districts from our group. So these kind of studies need to be seen to really understand what is happening. And I will not comment here what are the impacts, but this is one. The second most important thing, and I will end by saying this because there are a lot of other points, important points which need to go into this kind of work. The second most important point is that in India, there is already an official policy framework on climate change areas. It's not the National Action Plan because that do not have much. But 23 states and 23 states have come up with their own state action plans on climate change. And we have been from Beyond Copenhagen, where Ajay is also taking a lead in that. Many other groups are involved. We have been trying to bring out these in the public domain and bring this to people, including marginalized communities. And what we have seen is most of these action plans on climate change, even if they have a section, whole section on disaster, they don't mention marginalized communities separately. In fact, they look at the entire state as a monolithic structure. So that's a major area that organizations like National Campaign for Dalit Human Rights and others should intervene into, because none of these plans are absolutely final. These are a final draft stage. And at this stage, they should intervene in this kind of national policy framework so that the actual conditions, and I'm repeating this should be coupled with real grassroots, ground level knowledge of what kind of impacts are happening, how these differentiated impacts are impacting more the marginalized communities, including Dalits, and also Adivashis that we have worked with. So these two areas are major, in my opinion, are major areas of work that should be taken up, and they should be taken up with an urgent sense of urgency, because these policy frameworks are being worked upon for the last 4 years, almost 5 years now, up to the national plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Soumya. I think you're very, though with the short time, brought out some of the important areas for way forward. And I think this is very critical for all of us, not just, as you said, not just for Dalits, but also for those who are involved in the climate justice. Because if we don't understand the dynamics that are happening with these communities, then a major part of those who are involved in this are getting invisibilized and are not able to cope up with the thing. So with this, I think we go to the next session, unless if there are any comments which any of you would like to make, please do so, then we can go to the next step. Yeah, sorry.
Just a very brief comment, taking further from where Dr. Sunita talked about urbanization. I mean, urbanization has been the biggest driver of rise in not only risk and exposure, but also vulnerability. And the way we are going into urbanization, globally 52% of the population right now lives in urban areas, and this is expected to rise to more than 70% by 2050. And more than 70% of the people live in urban slums, and we are very well aware who are the people or community groups which constitute urban slums. So it might be a very good idea to do some sort of mapping of risk, exposure and vulnerability in urban slums, on specifically with regard to Dalit and marginalized populations. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ajay. Shed, you want to? Okay.
Thank you. I am really happy that the Karnataka state, especially Bijapur, the rehabilitation work at Bijapur and the vulnerability at the rehabilitated area are in the worst possible way, and that highlighting will really throw light to see that how much risk is involved and how the disaster management does take place. And if such things are highlighted, hopefully we can have a better tomorrow, especially for the Dalits who are still striving and struggling for existence. We appreciate the concern taken by Madam for having done deeper study, and hopefully we form a team to see that we combat this menace.
Thank you. I think now we go for tea, or we have tea, or we just go continue the sessions.
Started late, so maybe we can ask the people here if they would like to break for tea.
Yeah, tea will be good. Always. Yeah. We'll come back as soon as possible. I think it's about 10 minutes.
I think few introductions are needed.
Yeah. Those, please.
Join later.
Can you on the mic?
I'm Radhanath Tripathi. I'm an associate professor in Delhi University. I'm teaching political science, and I'm working on Dalit rights and disaster. Yes, so I did a postdoctoral level research in University College Dublin, Ireland, with a European Commission fellowship, and recently I've come back to India. So the first of my interaction with a group of people working in the field of Dalit rights. So I'm new to this field. I have been working on human rights the last 15 years or so. My area was how to apply the right-based approach to different issues, to solve different issues in society. I work on custodial death, custodial torture, and different aspects of human rights. And at present, I am working on this right-based, how to apply right-based approach to disaster management in India. So this is a new area I am working on. That's why I am here to learn from people like you, those who have been working in this field for since long. But I am new in this field.
मेरा नाम गुरुचरण है और मैं विजन संस्था से उत्तराखंड।
Welcome to you. And we'll come back as soon as possible. 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 15.